Incumbent Senator Ed Markey and his challenger, Congressman Seth Moulton, faced off last night in a debate 1 month ahead of the Democratic Senate primary. GBH politics reporter Adam Reilly moderated the debate along with our colleagues from Boston 25 News. Adam, you join us now. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Hi. So how'd it go?
Flawlessly.
In terms of your moderating?
In terms of the moderating and in terms of our execution, no. In all seriousness, I think it was a very tense debate. These two, I think, sometimes people are going for the same job and you don't get a sense that there's actual animosity there. Here, I think there is real legitimate dislike, mutual dislike, and I think it was exacerbated last night.
Some of the questions that came up, because moderating this was very difficult, I could tell, because of the way they were really locked in on each other.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't so much, it would brought in to say, I'm representing the interests of Massachusetts voters, blah, blah, blah. But there was a lot of attacks that were very specific.
A lot of very specific attacks offered in response to a question that had nothing to do with those attacks.
And the question comes from the other candidate. So it's not even in response,
Sometimes, yeah.
Right. So there's one moment that we have to get into. Seth Moulton just comes out of left field at one point, bringing up the Epstein files. Here's that clip with Markey's response.
In the newly released Epstein files, your name appears repeatedly. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but I just want to ask one question. And I ask it from the perspective of a father of two young girls at home. Why would you even take a meeting with a lobbyist on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein? Just how could you do that long after he was convicted?
What you are doing right now is absolutely reprehensible.
So as a father of young girls, Adam, how do you unpack this?
Well, I think you and I were talking about this before we started rolling here, and it's a really complex situation to describe. But I think the most important thing for people to know is that Senator Markey did not take a meeting from a lobbyist who was trying to get lenience for Jeffrey Epstein. That wasn't what happened. This involved the son of the president of Senegal, who had been imprisoned. Epstein was working for his release because they were friends. There were other parties working for his release as well. Feel free to jump in here.
Just to give context, Markey was the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee
subcommittee on Africa.
And so he had held a meeting, I guess, with attorneys who were reaching out to advocate for the son of this former Senegalese president. And then they had reached out to Epstein, so these emails are there.
And so Epstein, my understanding, based on the way the Moulton campaign explained it last night, is that Epstein hired a consultant also to work on freeing this friend of his, and that Markey got a briefing from a associate of this consultant. So very tangentially connected.
Appealing to him, yes, of course. Right. Seth Moulton also in the Epstein files. I looked him up this morning. I looked you up as well. You're not in there.
No, I'm not.
GBH is in there twice because he got a lot of newsletters, the FBI newsletter. So I really appreciated your follow-up as a moderator where you said, hey, there's a lot in the Epstein files. But the implication there is that if you're going to bring up the Epstein files and then say, I'm not going to get into the details, and then say, as a father of young girls.
How could you do this?
The implication there.
There's a strong implication that Markey's in some way associated with Jeffrey Epstein's worst behavior.
So Markey's response is interesting to me because he doesn't answer the question. He doesn't say, well, this actually is totally benign because I was on this committee. He just doesn't even acknowledge it at all. And so I wonder, I'm not a politician and I don't, I'm not in this world, but I wonder if he was avoiding a trap where Moulton's intention was to associate Markey with Jeffrey Epstein.
That's possible. I think we heard when he says what you're doing now is reprehensible, that had a level of genuine emotion and sort of authentic disgust that I'm not used to hearing in these debates.
This is how Markey responded in a scrum after the debate.
At no time did I ever meet with anyone related to Epstein on anything that had to do with Epstein at all. I don't know Epstein. I don't know his business. I have nothing to do with him. This was just a desperate attack, an unethical attack by a desperate man, Seth Moulton.
A desperate man. And this is Moulton's response to a scrum as well. where he essentially repeated what he had said on the stage.
My question was really just focused on thinking of this as a father, right? You know, the father of 2 little girls. After this guy has been convicted, how could you even take a meeting with a lobbyist working on his behalf?
But
The lobbyist was working on someone else's behalf.
Right.
Right.
So that's the...
Yeah, I think that's the moment everyone will remember. In the studio, when Moulton brought this up, it was sort of like the equivalent of a record scratching.
Wait, yep,
with
that's
just everyone
me,
standing
Adam
up
Reilly.
saying, "Oh my gosh!"
But you
what's
jumped
going
right on it. You were like, "There's a lot of stuff in the Epstein files," because it's his whole inbox.
I'm glad that stood out.
The
Yeah,
Epstein files is an email account that was apparently never cleaned out.
there was a lot in there.
Yeah. Speaking of Moulton's girls, Markey also called out Moulton for previous comments he'd made in 2024 to the Times about trans athletes. At the time, he said, "I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that." So Markey called him out, and this was his response during the debate.
To the trans community, feeling the weight and the pain of the Trump administration policies, I deeply recognize your trauma. And I'm sorry if my comments hurt you. That was not my intention.
Sort of a non-apology apology there.
We all know
my
if I were to
comments-
say, if I hurt you,
right.
I'm
Although
sorry.
I still
conditionally.
think that maybe, and clearly the trans community, a huge number of people in it were deeply hurt by the congressman's comments. But I still think, even though it was a sort of a semi-apology or a pseudo-apology, I think it's further than Moulton has gone before in terms of demonstrating contrition for those comments.
I guess I question, though, in the follow-up of this conversation, did he take it back?
No, he didn't.
He's never actually gone ahead and said, well, now I support, freedoms and ability.
Well, I tried to ask him after he said that, are you still worried about your daughters being run over on the playing field by a male?
You asked that.
Yeah. And his response was basically, my kids are young right now. They're playing, they're playing sports with members of both sexes. So not a real strong answer.
Interesting. All right. Anything else in 10 seconds?
Anything else in 10 seconds? No, I think I'm going to filibuster for 10 seconds.
Okay.
I'd urge people to go back and watch the debate if they haven't seen it already, because this is a very close race, and I think that the debate could shape the way people vote.
All right. GBH politics reporter Adam Reilly, thanks so much.
Thanks, Tori.